I'm not going to say it's not going to work. In the NBA, we hired JJ Redick off a podcast to be a head coach, and we don't go nuts about that. It just hasn't happened in the NFL much, but gosh, we have unconventional presidential candidates these days. We have unconventional NBA coaches these days. We have unconventional talk show hosts. Theo Vaughn is the most popular talk show host in America. Like this is where we're at. And if they hire an unconventional NFL coach, I don't think it's the craziest thing, and I think everyone kind of enjoys that.
Welcome to the NFL on Fox podcast, presented by Verizon, the NFL powered by Verizon 5G. I am your host, Dave Helman, and let's be honest, this weekend shouldn't need much of an introduction. It is the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. We love football season from beginning to end, but this is what you do it all for. The names are big, the games are good, the stakes are high. Shouldn't need to sell this weekend to anybody. Nevertheless, we love football and we love talking about football. We've got you covered for all things divisional playoffs. 4 great games. We're going to break them down in detail. Later on, my guy Tyler Dragon from USA Today stopped by the show to help me preview the AFC matchups, Chiefs, Texans, as well as Ravens, Bills. But to start this thing off, as we so often do, my good friend Peter Schrager joined me to break down the NFC side of the bracket. Also, some bonus coverage. Peter and I talked a little coaching news as well. That on top of Lions, Commanders, and Eagles, Rams. Great conversation with Peter Schrager to start off the show. Let's jump right in. All right, Peter, we're officially here to preview the divisional round in the NFC, but what good would we be if we didn't touch on the team that's not playing? I can always hear the successful teams fans rolling their eyes when I tee up the Dallas Cowboys. And I mean, we covered the Mike McCarthy situation. We know he's out. They parted ways with him. It's never as cut and dry as it should be with the Cowboys. But now we're on to the coaching search aspect of this. And I wanted to start this off with you just because we were riffing about it before we started recording, is the circus of it all, the potential for insanity here. And obviously the headliner there is Deion Sanders. You could throw a couple other names in there. Like, I don't know that you can completely rule Bill Belichick out no matter what anybody says. But Deion, obviously, with the reports that came out Monday, is like the thing right now. You just said y'all were all over it on Good Morning Football. So how realistic is this? And do you think the Cowboys could really lean into the skid that hard?
Well, do you think, at halftime of one of the most dramatic games and buildup of Monday Night Football, we go to halftime and it's an 8-minute conversation with the ESPN guys about Deion Sanders? You think Jerry Jones is sitting at home saying, I'm fine with that. I think he likes
felt
this.
Like the most telegraphed thing of all, okay, so the report is that Jerry called Deion and Deion told Adam Schefter that it was flattering and intriguing, but he loves it in Boulder. I can just imagine the conversation between Jerry and Deion Sanders. Maybe they did actually talk about the job, but the overall theme had to have been,
let's rock the boat. Let's rock the boat. Let's go.
Watch this shit. Let's see what's about to happen when we put this out.
And there's so many levers to the media machine. I guess Jordan Schultz works for Fox now too. And it's like, he's got a connection to Deion and those kids. So he has the report. Then Schefter has a relationship with Deion because they used to work together at NFL Network. So you get them together, and then Schefter's got a quote on the record. And then all of us are like, okay, well, here's our week of content. Thanks, fellas. Like, we'll take it, we'll do it. And that's one side of it. I look at it from Jerry's side of it. And I've been hot on this. Like, at first I dismissed it right away. I'm like, all right, that's not going to happen. Kellen Moore is far more likely, or Robert Saleh is far more likely, because historically the last few hires, it's been Mike McCarthy, Jason Garrett, Wade Phillips. These are like vanilla hires, and it's just whatever. Then you start thinking about Jerry, 82 years old, has been hiring these, I hate to say dismissive, but like vanilla hires over the years. They get to the divisional round or they don't make the playoffs at all, and it's a whimper. When Jerry was like rocking and it was America's team. It was Jimmy Johnson with How About Them Cowboys and the hair. It was even Switzer, though it didn't last long. Switzer got him to a Super Bowl and Switzer had a little swagger. Parcells had some swagger. Sean Payton was there. He had some swagger. I don't know. At 82 years old, does Jerry look at this and say, let's not only start some stuff, but let's do it my way. Let's do it my way. And I think Jerry, the thought is that a lot of coaches would be overwhelmed by the idea of Jerry Jones's big presence, and Jerry might be overwhelmed by a coach with a big presence. But at 82 years old, if you told me Deion Sanders was his pick because he knows Deion for 40 years now and he appreciates the energy and the juice, and with him, Deion's going to bring a camera crew and we're going to have a Netflix series and Amazon's going to do a show and Tubi's going to do a show and we're going to have, we work at Fox. I'll call it like it is. Deion's first year at Colorado, they had that upset win week 1. We sent that big noon kickoff show to Deion's first 3 games. Did. The game was on ESPN and it was at 10 o'clock at night. And we sent the big noon kickoff show because Deion sells. Deion's exciting. So don't bite the hand that feeds you. I'm not going to be the one who's going to be a critic here. I'll take the content. And I think everybody gets a little piece of this apple if Deion is actually entertaining this. And then once he's the actual coach, I'm not going to say it's not going to work. In the NBA, we hire JJ Redick off a podcast to be a head coach, and we don't go nuts about that. It just hasn't happened in the NFL much, but gosh, we have unconventional presidential candidates these days. We have unconventional NBA coaches these days. We have unconventional talk show hosts. Theo Vaughn is the most popular talk show host in America. This is where we're at. And if they hire an unconventional NFL coach, I don't think it's the craziest thing, and I think everyone kind of enjoys that.
I'm not naive, and I'm not trying to rile people up. I understand that this could be a you scratch my back, I'll scratch your situation. Maybe Deion Sanders is angling for a raise. Maybe Jerry's trying to help him out. I also I don't care about trying to get people invested in the Cowboys because that's going to happen anyway. That's what they do. I'm just curious, and this has been my bit for a couple days.
Yeah.
I really think Jerry could take it any direction. If you want to go the conventional way and bring in Kellen Moore, and you could put a little Jerry twist on it if you want to by making Jason Witten your offensive coordinator.
Totally.
You can do that. You could also you could try to bring on a young star, but I feel like Jerry Jones has to be exasperated because this feels silly now, but he tried the hotshot, well-regarded OC thing not that long ago. Jason Garrett
was that guy.
Many people like to bag on him now. He was a hot commodity.
Bro, I remember covering this in 2008, and the Ravens, when they fired Brian Billick,
they were fighting over him.
They were fighting, and he paid Jason Garrett head coach money to stay as the offensive coordinator. So that's totally accurate. And he hasn't had a big splash higher since Switzer, really. I mean, I guess Parcells was for sure. I take that back. But Dave Campo, Chan Gailey, these guys weren't big swings. And now I just feel like it's different. He's 82 years old. He hasn't won anything in 20 years. And it's I don't know. Maybe it's fun to do it this way. So I can't get in Jerry's head. And I don't know if Steven and Charlotte are talking him out of it because I think they're involved with this too. And it's sure, we can Great. We can hire Aaron Glenn. And that's not dismissing Aaron Glenn.
No, he's a great coach.
Great coach. I don't know if that's the same. That doesn't move the needle like Deion Sanders.
He could try that again, and it wouldn't surprise me. But when we did this 5 years ago, I was like, no, they will go safe. They will look for a coach that is more accomplished than Jason Garrett. They didn't want to let go of Jason Garrett in the first place, but that didn't work. And so now I don't think you can pinpoint a direction on it. I think Jerry very well could say, screw it. And maybe it's not Deion Sanders. Maybe it's Steve Sarkisian. I don't know. But I really don't think you can discount a crazy hire.
I tweeted it when the news came out that McCarthy was out. I go, if you think the Jets had some outside the box interviews, and by that I mean Rex Ryan and Darren Rizzi, just wait to get Dallas. And then everyone's like, oh, Jason Witten, and I'm like, that's a possibility. And I thought that was it, and I was gonna kick back and smoke my cigar. And then it's no, Deion. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. All right, that's way more outside the box. All right, yeah.
Both of those would be equally unsurprising to me, which is why I'm loving this. I'm sure I'm sure people are exasperated by the Cowboys, but I can't wait to see which direction it goes. All right, okay. The Cowboys are not playing this weekend. I get it. Let's talk about some teams that are. I want to focus on the NFC with you. And I got to tell you, it's the biggest spread of the weekend. But man, I'm excited about this Commanders Lions game. I think everybody has to agree that Lamar versus Josh is like the game of the
Yep.
weekend. But after that, this is the game that I am next most excited to watch. I love the storylines. And I wanted to ask you, do you think the Lions are at all annoyed that Washington just completely stole their bit in 1 year? They were the downtrodden franchise that turned it all around. Everybody loves the story. They're in the NFC title game last year for the first time since 91. They still have a lot of juice this year. And then Jaden Daniels shows up and the other downtrodden NFC team just did it all right after them 1 year later. I feel like it's kind of stealing Detroit's thunder a little bit.
Dave, that might be the best take I've heard all week. I love that take. It's so true.
Thank you.
They trot out Eminem last year, and we talk about the season ticket holder who's waited 60 years for a title. And it's finally a home playoff game, and the Lions went really big on it. And we all cried tears of joy when they finally won a home playoff game. And then they went on and advanced and won another home playoff game. And it was this feel good story. And then the Washington fans are like, hold my beer. We've had not only 20 years of not winning a playoff game, but get this. Oh, by the way, we have a new team name, we have a new team owner, and oh, we were just the black mark of the NFL for the last 2 decades, and everyone hated us. And now we're this feel-good story with this great rookie quarterback and a coach that everyone universally loves. That is hilarious. Now does NBC try out the same package of the long downtrodden fan from Washington and what he's been through over the last 2 decades? I mean, in all honesty, they played in a playoff game in 2020 with Ron Rivera and Taylor Heineke, and like they almost beat the Bucks that went on to win the Super Bowl. It was a home playoff game. Like we just forget about that. We're like, no, 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 no. You don't even get it how bad it's been in Washington. But they've been in a bunch of playoff games and they just haven't won them since 2005. But totally, they've got the Cinderella darling feel good story has immediately become the heavy and like the Goliath to this new David that's in town.
It's just funny too, and you touched on it, but like at least, and I'm not trying to compare misery, I promise you, but like the Lions have always been lovable losers, much like the pre-2016 Chicago Cubs. Like everybody felt bad for them. Nobody ever felt bad for Washington. Like the vibes there were so bad. If you didn't outright dislike Washington, you just didn't even want to acknowledge them. So it must feel nice for Commanders fans to like A, be here, but B, have people that are like excited and interested to watch their team.
Yeah, and it's like one of these deals where if you have a Commanders or formerly the Redskins fan in your life, if you're of our generation, they know that there are 3 Super Bowl wins and they happened in the 80s and of course in the early 90s, but it's just a little bit too long ago for people of our generation, for those fans to be like, I got to enjoy those and really cherish it and like live it. So this is fresh because for the first time, maybe since the 91 Mark Rippon team, like they are the cool team and they are the team that's going to win games and in dramatic fashion. Jaden Daniels, I believe the stat is has 6 different wins this year in the final 30 seconds of regulation or in overtime. And that includes a walk-off Hail Mary, and that includes a walk-off victory in overtime to clinch a playoff berth. Totally cool story for this team. And they are a feel-good story, despite 20 years of maybe being like the weird neighbor on the block that you don't address.
That's another thing too, is I mean, Ford Field has become such a great home field advantage during this Lions upswing, and I trust that Jaden Daniels is not going to care at all. I'm so impressed with that guy's poise. My favorite fun little storyline to this game. I'm so glad that the internet has a better memory than me, because I would have never remembered that Amon-Ra St. Brown talked some trash about De'Ami Brown after their 22 game. 2022, we all know that Amon-Ra keeps track of
Drafted
like
after him. Like, who knew that? And like, yet we've got podcasts, we've got clips, we've
it's
got internet, we've got a wide receiver Netflix series.
it's so
It's
good.
all there. It's all there in print.
And Diami just had the game of his career, like leading into this game. It's phenomenal.
He has that truck of the guy, and I want to make sure my body is situated right so I don't get memed in a bad way. But he does this move where he does that where like the kids do, where in the NBA when you dunk on someone, you're too
Too
small.
small. Yeah.
Yeah. I just got to make sure your body's out of the frame when you do that because you don't want to be. Yeah, okay, you got me.
I'm also incredibly impressed that David Montgomery he's
Yeah.
not just available, he is a full go for this game. We already know that on a Wednesday morning. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's a cool story. And the question is like, is this one of those divisional round teams like the Ravens a few years ago where they had such an amazing regular season and then like Derrick Henry and the Titans come in and they knock them out and they're like, you're the one seed, but like just we got you. That happens time to time. We've seen it. The Cowboys, of course, lost to the Giants in the divisional round as a one seed. Like it happens. I just don't know if Detroit is going to be caught off guard here, the way they've played and the way they've had their pedal to the metal this whole time. There's been very little moments where they've taken their eye off the ball.
Tyrion Arnold is back as well. The defense looked nice against Minnesota. I'm not calling for the upset here, but 9.5 points is a large spread. I
It's a
won't be
lot.
surprised if it's more like a touchdown game. I do like the Lions. Rams at Eagles, early game Sunday. I knew I wanted to talk to you about this while the Vikings Rams game was happening on Monday. You're in with the Rams coaching staff. You're tight with Sean McVay. Tell me more about Chris Shula, because like I know who he is. I know that he's the Rams DC. I know that their defense has been good this year, but that was the type of performance that just makes you stand at attention and say, well, should we be talking more about this guy?
Yeah, and no offense to Darren Rizzi or to Joe Witt, who is the defensive coordinator in Washington, or Vance Joseph, but I'm seeing on the bottom line ticker on ESPN and NFL Network, all these guys are getting interviews. And Chris Shula, after that performance and what he's done with a defense that lost Aaron Donald in his first year as defensive coordinator, had zero interviews and zero requests. And I don't know. Maybe you look at the league and maybe the McVay tree, there's some success there. Maybe you want to speak to the guy who helped, uh, you know, groom and teach and work with Matt LaFleur. Maybe you want to do it with the guy who worked with Kevin O'Connell. I don't, maybe I'm wrong. And that maybe you want to talk to one of these guys. Shula's done an incredible job. And this defense is led by Jared Verse, a rookie, Kobe Turner, a second round guy, Cam Kitchens, a rookie, Braden Fisk, a rookie. It's incredible what they're doing. Kello Witherspoon's the only real veteran on the defense, and he just got there. It's a really cool story, and that defense is legit. Now, for Chris, just a quick, biographical note on Chris Shula. Obviously, he's Don Shula's grandson. He
Mhm.
went to Miami of Ohio with Sean McVay. They were college buddies, great pals. They both go their separate ways. And then when McVay gets the head coaching job in LA, he calls him. He's like, do you want to be an assistant coach on this team? He has been on the staff with Sean McVay since McVay got there in 2016, and he has waited his time. And it was almost like the reverse Nepo baby thing. They gave the job to Brandon Staley. They gave the job to Raheem Morris. Obviously Wade Phillips was there. He never wanted to just give his buddy from college this job. And yet this year, when the job was open, Staley came back for an interview. They interviewed Aubrey Pleasant. They interviewed all these different guys. And it was like, no, it's Chris Shula's time. So his buddy from college is now his defensive coordinator, and he might be the one that's running the better unit compared to the offense.
I don't remember a game that the Rams won so convincingly where Matthew Stafford and the guys felt like such an afterthought, you know?
And they scored 3 touchdowns, and Stafford started the game 10 for 10. But gosh, Chris Shula's defense was the story, and the way that they carried that team in the second half and just put the screws to a Kevin O'Connell offense that had not been stopped like that all season long.
Now, the flip side of that, of course, is now they get a rematch with the team that decimated them in a way that I can't shake. It might have been the most dominant performance offensively that I saw this year. And I went and looked this up. I just wanted to make sure. Saquon Barkley had 24 carries for 113 yards
Hmm.
before you account for his two 70-yard touchdowns against this defense. So, as impressed as I was by Chris Shula on Monday night, he has his work cut out for him to keep that from happening again.
Yeah, and I was at that game in LA, and I think Saquon, and we're doing this now, and I think he just scored another touchdown. Like that's how dominant he was. He had over 300 yards of scrimmage yards, and that was one of those where the Rams were reeling a little bit, and the Eagles were just hitting their stride. And I felt like it was a different time. Like it was week 12. So if I'm the Rams, I throw it out the window. What I would caution the viewers and knowing all the emotion and what went into Monday night's game, short week on the road in the snow outdoors, where I will tell you the Rams under McVay have only played one outdoors playoff game in cold weather. It was in Lambeau during the COVID season with Jared
Mm.
Goff, and they lost. I just don't know if there's an emotional letdown and there's a hangover after how dramatic that win was for the city of LA. Now he'll get his guys motivated. He'll do his best, but like you have to understand just how much emotion and how badly that Rams team wanted to win that game on Monday night. And now you got to do it again, and you got to do it in 6 days against a team that has absolutely dominated you already once this season.
I think you can look at the Eagles side of this, glass half full, glass half empty. I choose to be encouraged that they convincingly won a game where their offense really wasn't firing on all cylinders. I thought that was an incredibly impressive performance from their defense, but I would be shocked if they can get away with being so inconsistent on offense 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. Look, if you listen to local Philly radio or you see some of the Philly fan blogs like the Crossing Broad and some of the like Bleeding Green Nation, in a lot of ways, it's as if they lost. Like there is not a feeling of relief. There is not a feeling of we just did it. Like it is what happened to Jalen Hurts on Sunday, and why couldn't our offense put that team away that was limping in and had nothing besides a couple of Josh Jacobs runs. Yeah, there's concern there, but fortunately the defense carried them too. The Kobe Dean's a big loss.
It
You
is.
know, where's the green dot for them? Solid player. Was at his best against the Rams in week 12, where he was all over the field. But the Eagles offense, it's Saquon. It's a guy reading a book on the sidelines, and you got to hope that you get your best out of Devontae Smith and AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, because that offense on Sunday does leave reason for concern.
I was about to ask you if you've ordered your copy of Inner Excellence yet,
I
or you're
haven't. I
holding
saw
off on that one.
it's #1 on Amazon. And now I think it's a cool shtick, like the AJ Brown book club. Like he should bring another one, but I don't know if we're going to see another book on the sidelines after the way that was received.
I personally loved it. People are always that somebody's always going to be offended by the idea of like anything but football, but hey, whatever you got to do to refocus, AJ.
No
And
doubt.
yeah, against this Eagles pass rush, I don't know, maybe you might need it. I can't wait to see that matchup. Eagles O-line, Rams pass rush. Eagles favored by 6.
What's a better matchup if we're doing the permutations here? And I'll just is it Stafford coming home to Detroit for the NFC title for the third game in Detroit in about 2 years, and now Stafford gets a chance to finally
Ooh,
beat the Lions?
ooh,
Is it, and that's also golf for Stafford. I always like to do the permutations here. Is it Washington Philly, which is a fun NFC East rivalry? Is it Rams versus Commanders in LA, which will be interesting considering all that LA's been through? And then I guess that's all we have, right? Or is there another? Oh, and then of
well,
course it's Philly Detroit. Yeah.
dude, I think you got to go Philly Detroit because they've been so dominant. And also the interesting thing on that too is like for instance, Kansas City's played Baltimore this year, Kansas City's played Buffalo. We've seen some version of the AFC matchups in the regular season. Detroit and Philly have not played each other, so we have no basis for what that matchup would look like. If I'm picking the NFC title game, I just want to see best on best Eagles Lions.
Let's go.
But now that you say it, Matthew Stafford playing in Detroit with
Cool.
the Super Bowl on the line would be pretty incredible. I'm
It's pretty
sure
cool.
that would be great. I think those are my top two. I hadn't
I
even
think
thought that
Fox
far
will
ahead,
take
but
Fox will take any of those matchups in the
yeah,
NFC Championship
I
game.
think
Yeah.
I think they'll be just fine.
And good 8 teams for the Fox Super Bowl. Maybe the Texans aren't a national draw, but I think You're talking about national fan bases and cool stories. At least 7 of the 8, you get the quarterbacks and all that. I hate to dismiss the Texans. I don't think they're in that class right now nationally.
They're not, but if they manage to get all the way to the Super Bowl, it would be a pretty amazing story in its own right. And they do have a franchise quarterback, and I mean, you can sell that to me.
Yeah.
It's not as juicy, obviously. If one of the big three quarterbacks doesn't come out of the AFC,
Well,
that
that's the
would
thing.
be
You're telling me that
shocker.
Stroud then Stroud's path to the Super Bowl was Herbert, Mahomes, and then Allen or Lamar. I could be sold on that.
Yeah, but like I said, by the time they get there, if they did, it would be. And I saw Joe Mixon did this after the game. Like Joe Mixon compared them to the 21 Bengals,
Yeah.
and when those playoffs started,
No one thought it.
Joe Burrow was like a well thought of young quarterback, and by the end of those playoffs, he was a legend. So I could see something similar happening if they pulled that off. But anyway, really looking forward to. I mean, I expect two great games. It was not the most amazing wild card
No.
weekend, if we're being honest, but I have a feeling that's going to change here in divisional weekend. Peter, I hope you enjoy it. Always love talking to you, man. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Dave.
Let's hop over to the AFC side of the bracket where things feel very chalky. Not all of these seasons went as expected. Obviously, a rough second half of the year for the Houston Texans before they impressively beat the Chargers in the wild card round. I don't know if everybody was as high as I was on the Buffalo Bills. You get the point, though. 3 MVP caliber quarterbacks and a Houston Texans team that everybody was very high on heading into this season. Those are your final 4 for the AFC. I don't think anybody's terribly surprised, which for what it lacks in shock factor, it makes for some incredible matchups. Really, really excited about this half of it. And to talk about it, we're bringing back our guy, USA Today national NFL reporter, Tyler Dragon. Tyler, I love synergy, man. And we pulled it off because the last time you were on the show, it was leading into the Chiefs Texans game just before Christmas. And here we are again. Early game, the first of the divisional games, early Saturday, Texans at Chiefs. Did last week do anything for you to bump up the juice in this game? Because I think 2-3 weeks ago, this didn't look all that enticing, but man, that Houston defense was impressive last weekend.
So you can replay everything I said a few weeks ago and just play it right now. Because I still think the Chiefs are going to win this game pretty easily, I might add. I look at the game last week with the Houston Texans, and yes, it was a fantastic effort by that defense. And not a lot of people were talking about Will Anderson wrecked that game. I mean, he was the best player on the field. He was blockable for the LA Chargers. And to me, in my opinion, he really forced a lot of the pressure that forced Justin Herbert to create a lot of those interceptions. 2 of those, yes, went off receivers' hands, but Will Anderson deserves a shout out for his game in that wild card round. But when I look at the matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs, it's a tough matchup because the Chiefs have a lot more skill position players that can hurt you on the outside than the LA Chargers. You know, when you have a Hollywood Brown, when you have a DeAndre Hopkins, we already know what Kelsey can do. So to me, it is a bad matchup for the Houston Texans. This Texans team, I do think that defensively, they'll still create pressure and cause Mahomes a little bit of, uncomfortable times in the pocket. But when I look overall at the bigger picture, I still think the Chiefs will win this game. And after all, Patrick Mahomes is 6-0 in the divisional round. It's hard for me to believe that his first loss in the divisional round will be to the Houston Texans.
I want to be very clear. I think that's dead on. And I certainly don't want to pick against Patrick Mahomes to lose as early as he ever has to what has been a flawed Texans team all year long. But if I'm at least going to play devil's advocate, you mentioned Will Anderson. We know Daniil Hunter's over there as well. I mean, they got a bunch of guys that can get after the quarterback. Danico Autry had some really impressive plays against the Chargers last week. And we know if there's an Achilles heel to this team, it's left tackle. And that's what I'm looking at all this week. Andy Reid said they're going to rotate Joe Thuney, their all-pro left guard, with DJ Humphries, the veteran left tackle. A little bit of gamesmanship going on there about who's going to start on the left side. But between a guard playing out of position or a tackle who had some rough moments in the games that he's played, surely D'Amico Ryans can come up with some sort of pressure package that takes advantage of that.
Yeah, and that's the biggest matchup problem that the Chiefs have. And I do agree with you. The Texans are going to have to get pressure with Hunter and Anderson to be able to win this game. But the thing is, the best quarterback in the pocket to buy time, to climb the pocket, and to scramble out is the guy they're playing in Patrick Mahomes. So that's where I do think that it's not going to be that big of an issue. However, if Hunter and Will Anderson can get home, this game could turn ahead and we could see an upset. I don't see it happening, but yeah, I do agree with you, because if the Texans have these exotic blitz packages, or if they're able to get home with just their front four, then that poses a huge problem for the Chiefs. But to me, that's what every team is going to try to do against Kansas City. They know that that tackle position, but at both sides, is a position of weakness for Kansas City. So they're going to try to exploit that. The thing is, though, that's been a position of weakness last year. It was a position of weakness probably the year before too, and the Chiefs been hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. I hate to sound like a Chiefs homer, and I just don't see it happening this week.
I mean, look, all these guys were available the first time this game happened. And Patrick Mahomes, you and I even talked about, he injured his ankle the week before, how healthy he's going to be. Should they consider sitting him? Maybe this isn't the defense to be playing Patrick Mahomes against. And not only did he run for 33 yards and a touchdown in that game, also the Texans struggled to really get a lot of pressure on him. I mean, I looked this up after the fact. They hit him 11 times and they did get a sack, but Mahomes he was only pressured like 28% of the time the last time this matchup happened. So it is the playoffs. Things change in the playoffs from time to time, but there's just such a body of work here with the Chiefs that I have a hard time seeing it. Even if I think the Texans will make it uncomfortable, because almost every Chiefs game has been uncomfortable, I'm not choosing this as the week to go against the champs.
Yeah, to me, the Texans have to try to establish the run with Joe Mixon and play ball control, try to milk the clock, and make the Chiefs play from behind. And that's when Patrick Mahomes is forced to pass and can hand the ball off to Isaiah Pacheco, and then you could unleash those pass rushers. That's maybe the strategy I can see the Texans employing, but will it be successful? I mean, it's hard to bet against Kansas City, but if they're able to get Mixon involved like he was last week, had over 100 yards against the Chargers, if Mixon can cross the century mark, 20, 25 carries, get into the end zone, they have possessed the football 30 minutes, that's a recipe for success against Kansas City. But that's a tall order, especially with Chris Jones coming back too in the middle.
Speaking of Chris Jones, I guess, again, if I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, I did the math and it has been 24 days, or on Saturday, it will have been 24 days since a meaningful member of the Chiefs played football. And if it were any other team in the league, I'd probably be worried about that. But my trust in the Kansas City Chiefs is just implicit at this point. Like, I got to see them struggle and look rusty in order to believe that that's an issue come playoff time.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why it's important for the Texans to start off fast. And maybe you can have the Chiefs thinking about it and getting nervous. Are we rusty? Are we ready to play this game? Did we come prepared? And if you start off fast, then the Chiefs have to play catch up, and then you could unleash those pass rushers and Hunter and Anderson.
All right. So we're in agreement. I think this will be an entertaining game, but not the day that I expect the Chiefs title defense to come to an end. So let's talk about the game of the weekend. I mean, let's be honest. All these games are good. I said it to Peter Schrager earlier. They're all good, but we are in agreement, I think, universally as football fans, that we are here for Baltimore at Buffalo, Lamar versus Josh, all that good stuff. And again, last time you were here, Baltimore was, I think they were gearing up to play Pittsburgh. And you and I were saying, hey, let's pump the brakes on Josh Allen as the undisputed MVP, because this guy Lamar over here is having an even better year than he already did last year. And sure enough, I meet up with you again a month later, and the guy's the first ever 4,000 passing yard, 800 rushing yard, 40 plus touchdowns, whatever you want to throw on it. Do you think, and we won't know for a little while longer, obviously, and this game will not affect the MVP vote, but do you think Lamar Jackson did enough to win a second consecutive MVP?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because the Vegas odds actually favor Lamar to win the MVP. So maybe everybody was listening to us during that podcast, since we were saying Lamar Jackson should be the MVP. I absolutely believe that Jackson should win his third MVP. I mean, when you look at what he's been able to do this season, to over 40 touchdown passes, to rush for 900 yards, to throw for 4,000 yards. Nobody has ever done that in the history of the NFL. His numbers are better than Josh Allen. The only difference is Josh Allen has a slightly better overall record. But when I look at most valuable player, the best player in the NFL this season, it is Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, Maryland. He has been unstoppable this year, and I believe he's going to prove it again on Sunday in Buffalo. He's going to have an MVP type performance, and I'm predicting that the Ravens will get the victory.
I love it. You're standing on business, man. I don't even have to like goad these predictions out of you. You're just giving them to me, I guess. And look, at the end of the day, I think I feel guilty saying it, because Josh Allen is a worthy MVP. You know, like, to go back to the preseason narrative, if you will, just, Stephon Diggs traded out of town, so many veterans released off that team. It's a reboot. We're taking a step back, and Josh is going to have to be the guy. And he absolutely has been, 40 plus touchdowns in his own right. His passing numbers aren't as good, but he has carried this Bills offense. He's been the engine of everything that they do. And where if I'm a Bills fan, I'm saying Lamar at least had Derrick Henry to lean on week after week after week. And Josh Allen, really, if he wasn't on, it was not happening for the Buffalo Bills. So I get it. I really do. And like I said, I feel guilty. I think Lamar has been that singular. And, maybe if only we could go back in time and maybe give last year's MVP to somebody else. I don't know. But this year, I just think Lamar Jackson has been the best player in football. That's just how I feel. And I'm sad that opinion means somebody's not going to win MVP, but I think it should be Lamar.
Maybe in a normal year, when another quarterback didn't have a historically great season, then you can give Josh Allen, the MVP. And this is not a knock on Josh Allen. Like you said, he's had an excellent year. The Bills lost Stephon Diggs, and I was one of the first ones to say the Bills weren't going to win the AFC East. They were going to miss the playoffs. I was proven very wrong in that prediction. And Josh Allen has been the MVP of that team and has led the team tremendously into the postseason. And I do think he's had a fine season, and not only passing the ball, but running the ball and giving the ball to a collection of different receivers. They got Amari Cooper later in the season, but they didn't really have a number one wide receiver for a majority of the season. So yes, he deserves a lot of MVP praise, but to cast my vote, in my opinion, he did not have a better year than Lamar Jackson. I don't care who Lamar Jackson had in the backfield. Derrick Henry, yes, he's had a fine season, second best running back in all of football this year. But yeah, Josh Allen's not the MVP. It's Lamar.
So let me ask you this, and I appreciate your confidence, because Lamar was phenomenal last week against Pittsburgh. He was phenomenal against Houston in the divisional round. Like, he's played well in playoff games, but we know he has come up short in big moments at times during his career. That is half the narrative in this game is, will Lamar Jackson finally play up to his potential in a huge spot like this against a quarterback like Josh Allen? We know the Ravens can beat the Bills. They beat the hell out of them earlier this year. But what makes you so confident that it'll happen in this spot on Sunday?
To me, I believe the Ravens have learned from their past mistakes. Last year, they forgot how to run the football, and they stopped handing the ball off. They stopped using that ground and pound attack against the Chiefs, and that's a reason why they lost that game. Now, especially with Derrick Henry in the backfield, you have to know that your identity, your bread and butter, is to be a run-oriented offense and play through Derrick Henry, and then let Lamar Jackson cook throwing the football and run read options with Lamar and Derrick. That's the most explosive running play in football, with those two running read options. So I believe if the Ravens dial up the run 30 times, and I'm talking about with Derrick Henry and Lamar, that's the recipe for success, because you have a player in Derrick Henry that, especially this late in the season, it's going to be cold in Buffalo. Those linebackers, those defensive backs aren't going to want to tackle Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter. We saw it last week against the Steelers. There were a lot of defensive players making business decisions in the second half against the Steelers when they were trying to tackle Derrick Henry. And so, to me, that's what the Ravens need to do. And then, quietly, the Ravens defense has played a lot better in recent weeks, especially later in the season. I believe that they're starting to gel and they're starting to play better, especially in that secondary. And that's going to pay dividends in Buffalo as well.
Yeah, I can't stop thinking about the photo of Patrick Queen chasing Derrick Henry in that game. And the freeze frame on Patrick Queen's face just looked like it said, what the hell have I gotten myself into? And I'm glad you brought that up, because, okay, Josh Allen's going to need to play an amazing game if the Bills are going to win this game. I think that goes without saying. But the big variable I want to see is those guys you just mentioned. And if you're a Bills fan, you're probably telling me right now, Matt Milano missed the first game between these teams. He tore his bicep in August. He missed the vast majority of the season. Looked great against Denver. I felt like he kind of needed some time to get his feet underneath him when he first came back from injury, but he looked a lot like the Matt Milano I remember against Denver. And if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you need that guy flying around, guessing right on every read option. Terrell Bernard too. I'm curious to see if the Bills' run defense can keep up with this, because they were undermanned last time, but it looked really gnarly the first time these teams played. Derrick Henry had 200 rushing yards. That just ain't going to work in a playoff game.
One thing that does scare me about this game, and that Buffalo has the advantage on, is Zay Flowers might not play. He has not practiced yet this week. And so if he doesn't play, then a bigger emphasis goes on, the Batemans of the world, the Isaiah Likely's of the world, the Mark Andrews. They're going to have to step up in the passing game if Zay Flowers does not play. And there are going to be moments where the Bills stack the box and force Lamar Jackson to throw to his pass catchers. And Zay Flowers is the receiver that separates from coverage better than anybody else in Baltimore's offense. So that's going to be a huge loss for Baltimore. But I do think Derrick Henry in the backfield will fill the void, because they're going to be a run-oriented offense.
I thought at the beginning of the week, I thought that I was going to be really special and different picking the Ravens to win. And then I saw, the Vegas line has shifted over the course of the week. The Ravens are road favorites last time I checked, which is a wild thing to say about going to play Buffalo and Josh Allen and everything that means. I'm sure the Bills feel some type of way about being underdogs in their own house, but I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I think Lamar Jackson finds a way to get it done, get back to the AFC title game. I'm hoping it's as good as it sounds on paper. Tyler, This was a lot of fun, man. I appreciate you hopping back on with me. We'll catch up again soon when we learn the fate of the MVP race. We can re-examine all of this, but I do appreciate it, man.
We got to disagree the next podcast.
I know.
The next time I got to disagree with you.
Too much harmony here. We got to find something we really disagree on. We'll work that up. But in the meantime, man, this was fun. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Have a good one.
All right. Before we get out of here, let's throw it to the Super Six. It's presented by DraftKings. If you're unfamiliar with the Super Six, it's not too late to play every weekend. Head on over to foxsports.com or the Fox Sports app. You too can play the Super Six. Make 6 picks. Different bets from across the league. Could be yardage totals, could be touchdowns, could be scores. You get the gist. Make 6 picks for this weekend's games. If you hit all of them, you can win really big. Every week, I'm going to call it giving you suggestions because the Super Six could not be more down bad right now if I tried. Because last week, I thought A.J. Brown was going to lead the playoff games in receiving yards, and he caught 1 pass, and he made more headlines for reading a book than he did for gaining yards. So we're gonna call these suggestions, but undaunted, I press on to give you advice for what to do or maybe for what not to do while you're playing the Super Six list this weekend. Let's get into it. I got 2. We'll see how they go this time around. The first one, quarterback with the most passing yards. You can choose between Jared Goff going against Washington, Patrick Mahomes going against Houston, Lamar Jackson going against Buffalo, Matthew Stafford going against Philadelphia. I'm going with Jared Goff and this very unstoppable Lions offense playing a home game. They're rested. They're ready. They had an extra week to prep themselves. They got so many options to choose from. Everybody should be available, even David Montgomery. And ironically, Washington limited Baker Mayfield to a very impressive yardage total, just 183 yards for Baker Mayfield in the game against Tampa, albeit I think that was more about keeping Tampa off the field with their offense than it was about Baker not having a good day. I thought he had a great day. Mike Evans had a great day before that game got away from him. So I still think Washington can give up passing yardage, and I don't think that they can fully cover all of the options in the Lions offense, whether that's Amon-Ra, whether that's Jameson, whether that's Laporta, whether that's the backs. You get the point. I think Jared Goff is going to have a really nice day playing at home. I like him to have the most passing yards. On the other side of this, how about receiving yards? Receiver with the most yards for the weekend. I'm going to try this again. A.J. Brown's an option one more time. Maybe he can redeem me. It's Puka Nacua going against the Eagles. A.J. Brown going against the Rams. Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Lions going against Washington. Terry McLaurin of the Commanders going against Detroit. I just took Goff. It makes sense to go Amon-Ra, but like I said, the Lions just have so many options. I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin to have the most receiving yards. He had 7 for 89 and a tutty against the Bucs. You know Jaden Daniels is going to throw him a couple go balls. That's what they do. That's Terry McLaurin's specialty. Jaden loves to throw the 9 route. He's going to get a couple shots, and I know the Lions are healthier on defense, but it's still a secondary that can get got, and Aaron Glenn likes to send pressure, so there should be some favorable looks at some point or another in this game. I like Terry McLaurin to get a couple of those shots. I like him to haul a couple of them in, and really, Terry, as long as you do better than 1 catch, will be, I'll be okay. But those are my picks for the Super Six. We'll see how they age. And just like that, we are done with the divisional preview. It is time for the best weekend on the NFL calendar. The divisional round is here. I can't wait for this slate, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. And don't you worry, we got you covered. We will once again have 2 episodes this weekend. We'll have a Saturday recap breaking down Chiefs Texans as well as Lions Commanders, and then we will have a Sunday recap breaking down Eagles Rams as well as Ravens Bills. We got you covered. That's the point. You're going to want to make sure you're subscribed if you're not. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get them. YouTube, go find us. Go find our YouTube channel. You can find us there. Wherever you prefer to get your content, you can find us as we break down all 4 of these fantastic games and look forward to the conference championships Can't wait, y'all. We'll talk to you soon. As always, I appreciate it.